Welcome to our series on Meet the Experts, Get the Insights, where commercial meets technology in the hotel world. Each of these episodes will feature passionate founders of great technology solutions that have a significant impact on your hotel's commercial success. I'm Vineeth, the founder of HotelLadder.com, a dedicated learning as a service platform that hoteliers can subscribe to. The platform offers micro-learning courses on all areas commercial to help hotel teams drive more revenue online and optimize profitability. Now, on to our guest today. To have Vassilis Syropoulos with us. Vasilis is the founder and CEO of JUYO Analytics and the head of product and co-founder of Get Into More, companies that are on the leading edge of cost and profitability analytics for the hotel industry. Vasilis has over 20 years of experience in hotel revenue management, distribution, and pricing and digital marketing, and has held some senior roles in some of the largest hotel companies, including IOG and Pandox. We are going on a freewheeling journey, hopefully, of discovery into hotel profitability and the story behind JUYO and what this means for you as hoteliers. So Vasilis and I met a few years ago when I was still working at Wyndham, and we were looking to find a commercial solution for Wyndham hotels in EMEA. At the time, we couldn't really make it work, but our common shared passion for commercial success, hotels, profitability has reunited us. So if I could pass it on to you, Vasilis, and just a few words on you and JUYO, whatever you'd like to say before we dive deeper into the specific topics and what could be beneficial for the hotels who are watching this.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me, first of all. And it is a pleasure to reconnect after this time. I think the first time we met was during the dark ages of COVID. And so that's very nice to speak in a more bright environment.
Absolutely.
Let's say. So yeah, as you said, my background is revenue management, distribution, that commercial sort of area. I've been doing this for probably more than 20 years. I've started revenue management when the CRS was not connected with the RMS, and perhaps even the PMS sometimes was not connected. So that was
The
these
good
early
days.
days. That was the good days. Yeah, exactly. Connectivity was optional, not mandatory. So that's kind of where I started, and as you said, I've worked for AG, worked for Pandox, always in commercial roles. And then at a certain moment, when I ventured on my own, it was very, very clear on the market that because there were more and more systems that the hotel was needed to operate the business, well, there was also an increasing lack of visibility of what's happening in all these different systems. I mean, it's no secret, we have pricing reviews, we have operation systems, we have finance systems, commercial systems, what have you, and it's kind of hard to make sense out of it. So that's kind of what led, let's say, to the inception of JUYO, which really started as sort of last famous words, how difficult can it be to put it all together in one place?
Absolutely.
So that's kind of how it
Okay.
started.
Yeah, no, so there was some of the pain points that obviously, there were specific pain points you picked up during your time at IAG and Pandox and some, other places. So what will you say were some of the specific sort of pain points you saw that made you think, okay, I've got to go there? I mean, you mentioned, the connectivity, the different pricing reviews, etc. So is there anything you'd call out and say, okay, I think I want to solve for a specific area?
Yeah, so there was two things. One was getting the data from all the different systems, and the other one was, because we were talking about profitability here, is at that time Pandox, who is a hotel ownership company, owned different brands and had a lot of independent hotels. So while one of the challenges was let's get all the data in all the in one place, the other problem was like, well, we kind of have figured out that distribution costs are increasing over time, and this is
Right.
an area that we're not doing much. So really, the platform started as of let's get all that data in one place, and then let's have a profit focus when we have all the data in one place, starting from the commercial perspective, which we kind of
Right.
never talked at that time. Commercial and profit was two things that were not coming in the same sentence very often.
Yeah, no, that is quite interesting. I mean, I don't know how much it has changed even now for that matter, right?
Perhaps a little bit better, but yeah,
A little
but
bit
we
better.
haven't
Okay.
gotten a revolution yet.
Yeah, that's what we're here, that's what, some of the things that hopefully that you're leading into. I mean, Do you feel that as a result of, some of that sort of lack of focus or profit focus, almost as you mentioned, there's a lot of money left on the table? Would you say that?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. I mean, when the incentives are not right, let's say,
Hmm.
and typically the incentives, and I'm not talking only about personal incentives, maybe for revenue management or commercial, but the
Hmm.
incentive as to what are we optimizing for
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
a gross revenue, then
Yeah.
who cares how much is it going to cost, right? I mean,
Yeah.
who cares
Yeah.
where it's coming from at the end of the day? And
Right.
then if you align to that, my personal sort of incentive, which is based on that, then why should I really care about profitability if I'm incentivized on room revenue? I think that's one of them. I think the other one is that traditionally, the large hotel brands have gone out of operating hotels, so
Yeah.
now they are franchise companies. So their
Mm.
fees are based on gross revenue, not so much on net revenue.
And that is quite a shift that potentially has had a big impact on this whole understanding or focus on
Yes.
costs, right? Yeah.
Yes, and I think the cost sort of discussion is really starting with the ownership companies, and
Right.
as the ownership companies are sort of getting a little bit more, I should say, sophisticated,
Mm.
and they sort of own that P&L. They say, well, we kind of need to like that looks like it's a second item on the P&L. Maybe it's
Yeah.
split across different lines, so it's not very, very clear. But
Hmm.
perhaps there's something we could do here, and there's money left on the table. And I
Yeah.
think I dare to say it's a lot of money.
Yeah. No, that is where we, I mean, that's why, that leads us to the story of what you actually did about it, and like, and then you started this company. So maybe you can just take us back with maybe your first product and where you started to address that pain point a little bit, and maybe where you've got to now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So basically, from the early days, and that's I think we're talking about maybe 2017, 2018.
Hmm.
That is the time where we really said sort of net revenue is really, really important to look at.
Right. Right.
I think there is it was really early days. There was not a lot of people talking about that stuff in 2017. That's like
Yeah.
8 years ago.
Yeah.
So I remember when a colleague of mine, Karen, and we were sitting and we were saying, how do we think should we look at this distribution landscape? We said it should be through the angle of net revenue.
Right.
So very, very simply, the first thing that we said is that let's get an understanding of this on Excel. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. You got to start somewhere. Yeah.
you got to start somewhere. And we said, well, how would it look? How can we calculate these costs down? What do we need to factor in? Let's build an Excel and see how it looks. So that was kind of version 0.01. After that, we said, well, look, we need like updating Excel is not something for the future, and we're building a
Right.
platform here.
Yeah.
So we need to automate all of this, and we need to be able to configure all these costs, let's say, in
Hmm.
the system. So at that time, we had this we could configure channel costs, and we could make a combination between channels and rate codes. So I give you a very practical example for some of the listeners. You got GDS and corporate accounts.
Right.
Some corporates are non-commissionable, but everything that comes
Right.
through GDS that is bar rates are commissionable. So you
Right.
need to have a sort of semi-dynamic allocation strategy. So we bake that in for the very, very beginning, and we're quite accurate of looking that net cost
Hmm.
of distribution. So that was kind of the early days. Where we are today, and after I'll talk about where we go, is that now it's a much more multidimensional engine that really takes account, all distribution costs across any dimension. It takes care of sales and marketing as well. So you can also do
Hmm.
sales and marketing attribution. Imagine you are maybe not an individual hotel, but maybe a chain of hotels, and you have salespeople that work, I don't know, for the Oceania market. You can assign their cost from that business. And also it's an engine that can take data from different sources and sort of
And I think that
consolidate
is quite a
all
key
that.
part, isn't it?
Yes.
Because that's always been one of the big sort of challenges, bringing multi-source data together. So that's something that you've been able to address.
Yes, absolutely. And you can pick it up from different data sources and allocate it where it should be allocated. So that's kind of where we are, much more dynamic, much more granular today. Where we are going is, I would say there's probably two roads that are sort of in parallel, and then we'll meet hopefully at some point. The
Right.
one road is to look at what's the total contribution of my business, profit
Mm-hmm.
contribution. So looking at extra spend,
Right.
saying, hey, how much people are paying, how much does it cost, how much total revenue are they paying,
Mm-hmm.
are they spending, what's the cost contribution on that revenue, and what's my total customer profit contribution.
So
So
almost
that
like a
is,
proper return on investment
yes.
calculation. Right. Okay.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly. So that's the sort of one avenue. The other avenue is, and very popular today. No conversation happens without talking about AI today, right?
Of
So
course.
so I need to jump on that train, of course,
Yeah. Yeah.
obviously.
Of course.
Is to sort of use AI that can make suggestions of saying, hey, you might want to invest your money here, or you might want to invest your money here. You have a
Mm-hmm.
finite budget.
Yeah.
Here's where you can get the best, let's say, return on
Right.
investment.
Okay.
That's a little bit
So
how we
almost
see it.
like you'd have the option for hotels to put a budget, and it's almost like you do it for meta search at the moment, and you might get recommendations, but you could potentially take it to all channels or many
Correct.
channels. Right. Okay.
Correct.
Oh, that's
Exactly.
amazing. I
Exactly.
mean, yeah, if yeah, I think that would be pretty amazing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, especially in AI, think things are advancing quite fast. So
Yeah.
very
So
excited about what's
capabilities.
happening there. Yeah.
Yeah. So just sort of taking a step back again, just one more time, just to make sure we've got some learnings from your journey or your entrepreneurial journey, but also with the industry and trying to do this. What would you say were a couple of key learnings on the journey? And before we go into sort of talk about what the hoteliers can get out of all of this.
No, sure. A few learnings is that everything takes longer than what you expected, much longer. Everything costs much
But
more
that's,
than
the
what you
hotel
had
industry
budgeted.
would say, oh yeah, we're used to that, whatever.
No, exactly. I would say a couple of learnings is that one of the things that was apparent in the early days, but is still very prevalent today, is that I think that's like a hotel bug we have, and I put myself in the hotelier
Yeah.
bucket as well, right? My
Right.
heart is a hotelier. That's where I started. Is that we kind of all waiting for the perfect solution, let's say.
Mm,
We want everything integrated and every use case to be done, to be addressed, and everything to
mm,
talk to everything. And of course, that's what we are doing. That's sort of the path that we're on to. But often, we can sort of get paralyzed by, let's say, waiting to have it all from day one,
right.
instead of saying, hey, what sort of incremental progress can we do on a day-to-day basis?
And that is quite powerful, isn't it? Because I think, services, software as a service or whatever, typically you'd want to be able to add lots of value as you go along, and rather than just expect that everything is in a box and everything is perfect, and then off you go. Yeah, I mean, so that's been part of the journey for you.
That is definitely. I mean, it has actually been so important that we've actually baked it in one of our values as well in the company. And I'm a personal fan of Japanese philosophy, so they have Kaizen, which is, hey, if you do one thing better every day, then this will compound, and at the end of the year, you will have done incremental progress.
Right,
So we really try to, in everything we do and how we manage software development, but also how we manage knowledge in the company, how we try to get to the next level, go a little bit further today than you were
right.
yesterday.
Yeah,
Don't revolutionize the world, but do slightly better.
yeah,
So progress over, let's say, anything. And I think that because we've sort of embedded in the organization, I think everybody speaks that language of
right,
sort of
right.
incremental progress. Customers understand how we think as a company. That's also important. You need
That is
to
really, yeah.
you need to have the trust that can this company, are they going to do what they said they're going to do, right? Do
Right,
do they
right.
give me enough confidence?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so that they're not going to say, this is the roadmap, which is an imaginary land where everything fantastic
Yeah, you
happens.
could say
That's
anything,
like
couldn't you?
you could
Yeah,
say anything.
yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
So yeah, so we try to sort of be very sort of diligent about how we do
Yeah.
that.
No, that sounds like, I mean, the principles of Kaizen and incremental progress, and that really is, yeah. I mean, that does sound amazing. So right now, like, who are your main partners? So if you take Geo, and you said you can get data from different sources and so on. So if you looked at sort of internal sort of systems of a hotel, what would you say are your main sort of partner group, tech partner
Yeah.
group, and what would they be if they are kind of external partner groups?
Yeah. So first of all, we have a very open strategy. We are friends with everyone. So what we say to
Well,
the
I
hotelier,
knowing you, yeah. I mean, I have no doubts about that.
yeah, we say, we're going to connect with anyone. It really doesn't matter. We are friends with the likes of STR, Travel Click, Lighthouse. Enfin, no, it's not Travel Click anymore. It's Amadeus
Yeah.
House. For instance, to name a few, so benchmarking, pricing, reviews, finance
Hmm.
systems. RMSs, we work with all the RMSs, we get data from them. It really doesn't matter. We try not to say to the hotelier, hey, you need to work with this company because otherwise we can't work with you. We say, okay, who do you work with? We'll try to integrate them. But basically, it spans across the way that we sort of think about this integration. We say, where is the most, let's say, sort of return on investment that the hotel
Fair
can
enough.
get?
Yeah.
Commercial
Yeah,
one.
because there's always a lot of demand on your time. Everybody needs something, so you've got to prioritize. Yeah.
Exactly. So we prioritize according to what we think is the best ROI for the customer. That doesn't always align with, let's say, maybe a customer A telling us, I need that feature, but time has proven that, and I think our customers see that, hey, that's a good way how they think about it, because after they're thinking, hey, that actually was more important. We didn't think about it. It wasn't on our
Yeah.
radar, but looks we
Yeah.
can make more money here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that is a good way to kind of align, I guess, sometimes what could be deferring thoughts or opinions and proving that actually, if you look at it from an ROI point of view, that makes the most sense. So that's kind of quite a good segue to talking about it from a hotelier's point of view. So typically, some of the arguments, or not arguments necessarily, but like some of the things that you hear from hotels is, oh, we're pretty bit hands full. There's no time. How much time can we dedicate to analytics and data? And it takes too much understanding, too much time, etc. What would you say, to a hotelier? I mean, I'm sure you would have come across people who probably have said just that to you. What would you say, and what are your rationales to explain that maybe it is worth spending time on?
Yeah, I mean, things have changed a lot the last, I would say, 3, 4 years, perhaps. I think that we've seen like cloud adoption pretty heavy in hospitality. That's great. That
Hmm.
makes everything easier.
Yeah.
So, it used to take, I don't know, like a crazy amount of time to connect the system, validate the data, make sure that everything is correct, install these exports. I mean, it really reminded me of 20 years back when things were not connected, right? So actually, one of my first jobs was night audit, and I was automating extracts in night audit to do the night audit report automatically. That was my
Right.
first job. So, 25 years later, I haven't moved on. I'm still doing that, basically, just getting data and automating
Bonkers.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, bonkers. But things have moved, and it's much easier today to get an analytics platform at least live,
Right.
configure it. It goes really, really fast. That's not only us, our competitors as well, and all the
Sure.
companies.
Yeah.
Everybody has gotten better,
Yeah.
and that's great. That the hotels are winning after that. So I would say these barriers, we should kind of forget what we know from the past.
Right.
Things are getting much easier today, and especially if you have a modern tech stack, that is definitely an accelerator.
Right.
So I think
Okay.
that's
So
from the sort of onboarding perspective.
okay.
From the sort of dealing with analytics perspective, I would say there's two ways to look at it here. One way is to say, well, we're an analytics platform. If you don't spend time on it, it's not going to do something automatically
Yeah.
for
So
you, right?
yeah.
We're not an RMS, so to speak. That's one
Hmm.
way of looking at it, is that you'll get the best return if you really work with it, of course. But the other way to look at it is that, again, coming back with AI, there's many different ways today where a lot of this we can sort of produce insights much faster,
Right.
and hoteliers can spend even less time
Right. And
than
who
they do now.
typically sort of champions this cause that you found? Is it a revenue person typically, or a general manager, or is it sort of commercial head, or is it just sort of spread out quite differently? Or do you see like a type of person that, would champion this?
It would be, let's say, the first one would be a commercial leader. I think that that's really where it started. It used to be revenue management. Now it has transitioned. The commercial
Commercial or
position
broader
has
commercial?
really finally matured. So
Yeah.
it's the commercial person. What we see more and more, especially in the last 12 months, is finance as well, getting heavily involved
Right.
in to understand how good commercial is doing their work, but also commercial to want to talk to finance to understand the profitability again.
Right.
So these two functions are really starting to collaborate much more together. So how do we sort of link them?
Okay.
This year, but that's a function of what we do internally is we also speak to more and more F&B people because hotels chase revenue and profitability in other areas.
Ancillary revenues have become a
Ancillary
big
revenue.
topic as well. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. So we see these people joining as well the conversation. They are more and more hungry for data as well. So
Hmm.
that's also something that we are busy with now.
And what would you then say is a kind of a good tech stack for a hotel? I mean, you already said like being on the cloud obviously makes things much easier. So is a core requirement for a hotel if they wanted an analytics platform that gives you a lot of this breakdown of actual costs? What would you say is sort of a basic requirement to get started?
Hmm. I would say that I don't think there is sort of any data requirement apart from, sort of having like a sort of basic data literacy. Right?
Okay,
If you can read numbers, that's kind of
that's
where it
yeah.
starts, right? But of
But I was thinking
course,
also more from a technology, like a tech stack point of view. So,
yeah.
so you'd have a PMS, an RMS, let's say, and that would be a starting point, right? And then, then whether
Ah,
you can
yes,
get
I
access
see.
to financial data. So that's where I was coming at it from.
Yeah,
What the tech
I
stack
see.
could look. Yeah.
I see. So typically, what I think what happens is that hotels now they go through the heart transplant of changing the PMS. So it kind of goes
I
like
like it. Yeah, the heart transplant.
the heart transplant, then is the lungs, CRS,
I'm just drinking water.
and then it's perhaps the left hemisphere of the brain, the RMS, and then the right hemisphere is the analytics. So that's kind of how
Yeah,
it goes.
yeah.
Let's say. But yeah, I'd say that's kind of how you would start and get on with it. Yeah.
Yeah. So if we sort of looked a little bit more into the type of detail, so if you were a commercial head of a hotel, what are some of the sort of, easy to access KPIs or metrics that you would say, hey, look at this. That's a lot of money on the table. Where would you go? Like, what are some of the flags, you'd say to a hotel?
Yeah, I give two unconventional, or maybe three unconventional, or four. Yeah, they
Okay.
keep coming.
Yeah, we no
You know,
stopping you. Keep going.
stopping. No, exactly. So just to forget about the sort of the ones that everybody would talk, I think lead time is underutilized. It is
Okay.
such a powerful metric to look at.
Hmm.
And a lot of wrong decisions happen because we misunderstand lead time or we're not
Okay.
looking properly at lead time.
Yeah.
Most of the months, I remember also working in hotels, discussions where, oh, we missed the boat. It was like, yeah, we didn't get it. That was the lead time. It's like we know it now, we're looking backwards, but we don't know it looking forwards.
Right.
So I would say really sort of looking lead time in real detail is really an important one, and not the average, but how is that business sort of building up, and where
Hmm.
is your main booking lead time across all buckets, so to speak, for all businesses? That's a very important one. The other important one, I think, is looking at what I call, let's say, occupancy buckets, which is, for instance, looking at when is a certain piece of business coming more often? Is it a certain part of business coming when you're fully booked or when your occupancy is 50%?
Right.
So I find that quite interesting to see the patterns of all the business
Hmm.
that is sort of coming in. Net revenue, very,
Hmm.
very important, taking out distribution costs, for sure. And then I think the sort of total revenue multiplier is also very, very important. So for looking like for every euro that is spent in rooms revenue,
Mm.
how much more is spent in total revenue?
Okay.
And sort of that will, when you start layering these things, then you're gonna take different decisions that you would if you would just look at room revenue, no profit, no total revenue, etc.
Yeah, or even look at it partially, because I think that is where the case is. I think in many hotels, I would say, is you look at it like, okay, I know the commission costs of this channel is this, and there might be some awareness to costs around, okay, do we calculate in promotional discounts, a loyalty program participation, or payment processing costs? What if it's international versus domestic? There's probably a different cost there.
Correct.
It's just easy. I mean, the amount of money that is actually not being calculated. So, would you say, like, in your pool of clients that you work with, there are some good examples of people who look at it in that whole picture really nicely and are taking actionable sort of directions in their strategy? Or is there anybody, you don't need to name anybody, but if you had some potential examples without naming them, that would be great.
No, definitely, absolutely. I mean, we have a few of our customers that are all over this, right? So that sort of live and breathe with net revenue and distribution cost. Particularly, again, hotel ownership companies.
Okay.
If you sort of, if you own the P&L, the P&L is yours, usually you have a very good investment to look at that stuff.
Mm.
So they would take decisions on both levels, on, let's say, on a strategic level. It could be even very, very strategic,
Mm-hmm.
whereby a hotel ownership company would say, well, perhaps this and this brand in that location wouldn't work because the distribution costs are so high
Right.
for that
Right.
particular brand.
Yeah.
So that could be
Okay.
an example of very strategic decision. And then some other decisions are very, very tactical of, how does next month look like? How does next week look like? How much money do we want to spend on our marketing campaigns? So I think that's the beauty of net revenue is that it kind of spans from strategy down to tactics, and there's multiple levels on where you can optimize.
No, that's really powerful. I mean, and so Geo's products can deliver these kind of dashboards, which would give you that information. Okay, some of them will need customization, but for the most part, they'll give you that information that allows hotels to do just what you described.
Correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it will just run there doing its thing. And you can sort of just follow the numbers, see where you're standing. Absolutely.
Okay. What about one of the sort of typical pain points and that we all have is about data quality. I'm wondering how much of this has an impact on what the outcome looks like. Have you faced that as an issue?
Yeah, oh, definitely, absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, we like it's every day. Any tech company in hospitality will tell you, haven't heard about this,
Yeah.
would sort of be lying. And we're faced with that all the time. There is two big issues in hospitality. One is that a lot of legacy systems give you crap data. So
Mm.
you know, to not mince my words, accuracy can be sort of bad, or maybe even data integrity can be bad. So that's one of the problems. The second problem can be also how the hotel is utilizing systems, right?
Right.
Although that gets better, I have to say, because of the
Hmm.
digital distribution environment. I mean, who's inputting reservations today? Less and less. So
Yeah.
that's
So
much
it's less manual input, is what you're saying, right? Yeah.
less manual input. And also, I think the first problem will also disappear because of cloud PMSs, and they're all getting better and better. So as we move in time, accuracy will get better, integrity will get better. And that's fantastic because you can't
Hmm.
run analytics on crap data, then you'll get
Yeah.
crap anyhow.
Yeah.
And even if you talk about AI analytics on top of crap, on top of crap analytics that
Yeah.
sits on top of crap data, is not going to do it.
Hallucinations, the famous
Yes,
AI hallucinations will just get worse.
exactly. So we'll be turning in circles.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Do you see like a big difference between independent hotels or smaller hotel companies and large chain hotels when it comes to this type of analytics, what are your observations? Are they way ahead? Are some of them way ahead versus what have you seen?
I am surprised every single day of the small independents that we are meeting and small hotels that are really, really sophisticated in their thinking
Right.
or getting more and more sophisticated in their thinking. I think that's great.
Hmm.
I think that's fantastic that, we had in small independent hotels that said we want to understand net revenue. And it
Yeah.
was like, wow, that is incredible. That's
Yeah.
welcome. That's
Yeah.
fantastic to hear, for instance. So I think that it's also a necessity because of the economic environment that they need to focus, of course. But I think that's fantastic. I think there is a lot of innovation in sort of the mid-scale sort of companies, maybe
Right.
companies that run or own or operate maybe 20, 10, 30 hotels, 40 hotels, 50, even more.
Hmm.
There's a lot of innovation there, and they really want to push the boundaries of analytics. The chains perhaps is a different scenario because they are franchise companies, right?
Right.
So they're driven by different incentives. I'm not criticizing them. I'm just saying that they
Yeah,
have
no, I
different
mean, I think it
incentives.
is an open, platform because we know that there are limitations. And, I mean, you and I met when I was working for a
Yes.
large franchise company, and we know that there are certain challenges, practicalities, etc. But it would be just interesting to hear what the thinking is, what you've seen at least, and I can add my bits to it from what I know.
Yeah. So I think the most of the innovation is coming in sort of that mid market,
Right.
let's say. And
Okay.
that is where we get very most challenged by our customers with that they really want advanced analytics. They really pushing us to go deeper and deeper into the data and to give them insights that they've never seen before. It's not enough anymore to say, oh, we have a pickup report. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Everybody has a
Yeah.
pickup report. So you need to go much deeper in the data to find these sort of opportunities.
Yeah, no, that's fair, and I think, I mean, with the larger ones, I think that the challenge is, as you said, because sometimes it's a franchise model, ownership of data. There are lots of layers of complexity, multiple systems, and of course they also have access to business intelligence that is, internally available, and it may not be granular to the level that you're able to provide, but at the same time, which is one of the
That's the
reasons
trick.
why yeah, absolutely. So if a hotel who is not getting their net revenue analytics sorted now, or they haven't thought about it in any level of detail, what would you say to them?
I'd say have a look at the data. You'd be surprised. And I don't think it's a positive surprise.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Sorry.
Where would you say is, like, especially getting started, obviously you need to sort of feel like, hey, I've caught on to something really good, and, here's how I can make a real impression, save the company lots of money, or, where is the big win? Where is all, for want of a better phrase, low-hanging fruit in this sort of
Yeah.
area?
I would say in the area of net revenue, you mean?
Yeah, yeah. So overall, if they were to use, I mean, a platform for business intelligence, data analytics, profitability analysis, where, and if I'm the commercial head of a set of three hotels, let's say, what are you telling me to look at, and why, what would be my quick wins if I went in with some analytic tool like Geo?
Yeah. No, absolutely. So I would say the number one and that sort of space, I wouldn't say instantly, but has certainly a really big ROI is so sometimes we have sort of mantras in different areas of
Hmm.
expertise. And we have this mantra in hospitality saying direct is best. I just want to
Right.
showcase that example, right?
That's a good one. I'm
And
very interested to discuss that one. So go for it.
And usually, when we have mantras and it becomes kind of religious, that's when you need to start saying, "Okay, like, is this really actually?
Yeah, you
Let's
can't be
take a look at
blinded
it."
blinded by the mantra almost. Yeah.
Exactly. So if you really sort of spend that time and sort of get all that data in one place and aggregate it and align it around the bookings, you actually realize that that's not entirely true, at least all the time. There is time where direct is best, but there's a lot of times where direct is definitely not best, and getting the bookings through third parties is even better, actually.
Hmm. Hmm.
I think the one thing to say here is that you start to when you see that net ADR coming from your different channels and companies and agencies and source markets and what have you, the picture is sometimes dramatically different from what you expected. And then basically, you can potentially have taken the wrong decisions for years in a row, if you will. So, and that makes it very, very transparent for you to actually change your strategy. So that is something that, I mean, we've also been surprised of
Mm.
seeing how, if you take, to talk about some brands, for instance, without naming them, commission cost, loyalty cost, franchise fees, pass-through fees, God knows what, credit card processing, how the booking comes in, is it a prepaid card, etc. And then you look at this total, and then you're thinking, okay,
Mm. Yeah.
that's interesting. And then if you really want to take it to the next level, and these are real discussions that we have with some customers, is like, okay, let's look at repeat business. Let's look at, lifetime value. What is the repeat business of these customers? At least, do they give us business, let's say, on a sort of horizontal way over time?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, what we see, what's interesting with net revenue, it's a little bit like sort of skiing. You get better every time. It's like you
Okay.
never get to be a champion. It's like there's always
Yeah.
something new that you're
Yeah.
discovering. So
Right.
it's a marathon, so to speak. And customers get very quickly thirsty for the next thing. It's like, okay, now I know what's net contribution. What's next now?
Yeah.
So you need to sort of take them on that. It's almost like a detective inspecting where they can find more
Right.
profit.
Yeah. No, no, no. I mean, I think that's a really nice way. I mean, if you investigation really, and I think with the direct channel business, I mean, we know why we love direct business. I mean, because obviously you have direct customer contact. There is usually the outside costs are low. It's a 5% or a 10%, whatever, but it's usually not 15 or 20. But I think what you mentioned earlier is being a bit channel agnostic and being really selfish
Yes.
and is about is this customer, like if you're building genuine relationships for the longer term, and obviously you throw some money into it and say, okay, each time you get a customer that is repeat customer, obviously, your cost is a little bit different, but I am quite, keen to also call out that, direct is not always, necessarily the most profitable. And also the other issue I have with it is the fact that sometimes volumes are a problem because if you just
Mm,
blindly go after direct and you're getting 10, 20 bookings and it's not going to be enough. So you've got to find that right balance, and I think the way to do it is really to have a platform like JUYO, or that can actually tell you, look, this is the real story, so go for it. Or direct channels, brilliant, it's only costing you 7% when you add up everything, and then you're doing a fabulous job. I mean, just go all out for it. Whereas if you find it's like, lots higher, well, then you probably stop and think and say, okay, are there other places to get that type of business? Um,
absolutely. I think it's key what you said, like being channel agnostic.
yeah.
That's absolutely true.
Okay. No, that is, so that be having that visibility. So now one question on behalf of a very young hotelier. So we talked about a commercial director and so on. What should a young hotelier who's new but learning the ropes in commercial, what should they know about this space, and what would you encourage them to think about, look at, ask, etc.?
Yeah. So I think that demand generation is very, very important. So if you're a young hotelier, that's what you sort of want to do. First of all, is you get people
Get the
eyeballs
revenue.
on your hotel, get them to
Yeah.
book, get them in, right? First you optimize for revenue, then you optimize for net revenue.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of important. Demand generation, the digital environment is something
Mm.
that a lot of people are sort of talking about, but there's a lot of levers that you can pull to generate business of all the marketplaces that exist, right?
Right.
So I would say the first thing is, what is my toolkit to generate business here?
Hmm.
And then within that toolkit, that's kind of step two, what is potentially my return of investment and how much does each tool cost me, so to
Right.
speak?
Right.
And I think this toolkit is, although there's some consolidation in obviously in OTAs,
Hmm.
but the toolkit though is quite large. I mean, there's still meta search, there's other channels, so that's where to start with. I'd bother with that before I would even bother with pricing, perhaps.
Yeah. Okay.
Pricing with kind of fall, you kind of gonna get it automatically right, so to speak.
Yeah.
But
It'll
demand
level out.
generation,
Yeah.
you need to work for it.
No, that is really interesting. I always think, I mean, when I look at the commercial functions as well, I always find, like, okay, it's important to really be good at revenue management, but then you also need to feed the top line funnel
Yes.
where to drive in the business before you can do something with that revenue and yield it better. So I think it's in a similar way. You really need to get the demand generation toolkit working and then look into what channels you've got and then start looking at optimizing what you've got and what the data is telling you. Okay. Now, thank you for that. So, just to sort of close out our conversation a little bit, where is JUYO's journey going? I know you kind of mentioned a little bit earlier on about the direction with AI and so on. Is that so? And what does it mean for hoteliers? So, whatever you're planning to do in the near future, whatever you're allowed to, or whatever you'd like to let out, rather.
I would say that the future of analytics is actionability. And as in actionability is that perhaps you want the system to start taking some decisions maybe by itself, or at least suggesting some decisions by itself. So actionability is definitely one part. And I think with actionability then comes, to give a little bit of a hint, comes a question of where do you want that actionability to sit? Is
Right.
it on which UI, and where is that where is that actionability sitting,
Hmm.
and when,
Right.
right? Is it something that you sort of get it in the morning, or is it more real time? Is it something
Yeah.
that is behind in your desktop, or is it something that's happening on your mobile, or is something
Yeah.
that you don't see? So that is a little bit sort of to give a few hints where I think the future of analytics
Right.
is,
Okay.
so to speak. So we're doing some really, really exciting, actually, sort of transformation of how the platform is being built today.
Hmm.
And I think we're trying to not put lipstick, so to speak. I would say on a pig, because it's definitely not a pig, but sometimes the temptation with new technology is to put lipstick on what you already have, but
Yeah.
it's much harder to reinvent what you have. And I think that
Right.
that's what we want to do.
Okay, so not put patchwork solutions, but really make sure that there is a core difference to what you're doing.
Yes.
One of my questions was going to be what are you excited about the most going into, well, we're in the new year. So what do you have anything to add in terms of what are you most excited about from the point of view?
Yeah, I'm excited about this particular part, the last piece that we talked, the particular part of the journey, because it's a journey of reinvention. So although we do a lot of things iteratively, I think now we're to the point where a lot of things need to be rethought for the next 2, 3 years.
Yeah.
I think, with sort of cloud adoption in hotels, I think the possibilities are going to grow exponentially.
Hmm.
And I think that means that in 2, 3 years, the analytical needs are going to be much more different than
Right.
what we do today.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, if the analytical needs are much different, you can't continue on the same path.
Right.
So, you need to iterate on what you're doing, but you need to reinvent some other parts of the business. And as a business, sort of, to come back to the business entrepreneurial sort of,
Yeah.
thinking, having that balance between iteration and innovation is
Mm.
something. It's a fine balance.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm really, really excited about. That what gets me up in the morning.
Absolutely. No, that is great. I mean, and my last question was what keeps you up at night, but it sounds like this might be the same.
What keeps me up at night? Let me. I think that I sleep good at night. Actually, I sleep very, very good, so it doesn't really keep me up at night. It definitely wakes me up though in the morning.
Excellent. Well, on that note, Vasilis, well, it's been a fab conversation, and I hope whoever's watching gets a lot of value out of it. And it's been delightful to catch up with you and then talk through lots of different areas. And it's great to see JUYO going from strength to strength. And I wish you loads of luck. And then I'm sure we'll be in touch one way or another. Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you for having me. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely.